Today let's take up the double column cash book. In our previous sessions we have already seen the single column cash book and how to do questions pertaining to the single column cash book. Now let's first of all try to understand what a double column cash book is and how and what type of transactions will come in the double column cash book, right? So first of all, in a two column cash book there are two columns. One is a cash column and the other one is the bank column. So the first point that you need to understand here is it's also called a two column cash book or a double column cash book, right? So a double column cash book will have two columns, one cash column and the other bank column, right? So now all the transactions pertaining to cash or bank will be entered in this double column cash book. Whatever transactions are pertaining to cash will be written on the cash column, and whatever transactions are pertaining to the bank will come in the bank column. Fine. So supposing you have transactions like this: deposit of checks, right? So this will come in the bank column. Then we write withdrawing cash from the bank, right? That is again something which is related to the bank, though we are withdrawing cash also, but we are now looking at the bank aspect, right? If let's say there are two things here, like I said, it has a cash and a bank column, so it is basically like representing two accounts. One is your cash account and the other one is your bank account, right? So in the earlier single column cash book we were representing only one account there, cash account. Now here there are two accounts, cash account and bank account, and at the end you'll be getting the balances of both, right? Now let's try to understand how to record these transactions in this two column cash book. First of all, bank, this is a personal account, and the rule for personal account is debit the receiver and credit the giver, right? And cash is a real account, and the rule there is debit what comes in and credit what goes out, right? Now using this, whenever the bank receives something, right, something means obviously it will be a check, money it will receive. So whenever the bank receives something, it will be debited, and whenever money is going out of the bank, then it will be credited, right? As far as cash is concerned, whenever cash comes in, that is debited, and whenever you pay cash, that is credited, right? So when the bank is the receiver, right, then it is debited. Like we say, cash deposited into bank. So when we write this cash deposited into bank, bank is receiving the money. Bank is receiving the money, right? So bank is debited and cash is going out of the business. Cash is being put in the bank, right? So cash is credited. Fine. Now when you have cash withdrawn from bank, in this case bank is the giver, bank is giving the money, right? Bank is the giver, so it will be credited, and cash is basically coming in because you are withdrawing the cash and bringing it into your business, so that is a debit. Fine. So now this is the basic rule that is to be followed, and I'll show you now the format of the cash book, double column cash book, right? Format of this, right? You already know how to prepare a single column cash book. So here basically the debit side, the date column will be there, particulars, right? And then ledger folio, fine, and then one cash column and then one bank column, right? After that the credit side, again the same, date, particulars, ledger folio, cash and bank, right? So this is basically the debit side here, and I'll write this, particulars is here, ledger folio, cash, bank, right? And here again this is date, particulars, this is your LF, right? And cash and bank, right? As you did in your single column, this is basically the receipt side, where all the receipts will come on the debit side, and whatever payments that will come on the credit side, right? Okay. Now some more important points relating to this. When we introduce the capital can be introduced either in cash or by a check, right, through, I mean, into the bank directly or something like that. So if it is through check, then obviously it will be put in the bank column, right? If it is through cash, it will be put in the cash column, fine. Then remember this, all receipts are written on the receipt side, fine, cash in the cash column and checks in the bank column. So whatever checks we receive, that is put on the receipt side of the bank column, right? And all the payments likewise are written on the payment side, fine. All payments are written on the payment side. The same thing, cash in the cash column and checks in the bank column, fine. So if any transaction you have, if any transaction increases the bank balance, right, then the bank column is debited, and if it decreases the bank balance is credited, the bank column is credited, right? So this is something important you should remember. If any transaction increases the bank balance, right, then it should be debited, and if the transaction decreases the bank balance, then it should be credited, right? Now after this I'm going to take up contra entry. Now contra entry is something which involves both cash and bank, right? Like you may have transactions in which you write goods purchase for cash, so it is basically goods and purchases and cash, or you have rent paid, so rent and cash, or you can have rent paid by check, which is rent and bank, right? Now when we say contra entry, in contra entry the two accounts that are involved are cash and bank, right? So you can have the transaction like this, cash deposited into the bank. Now when you deposit cash into the bank, what is the journal entry that we write? We write bank account debit to cash account. So here the two accounts that are involved are bank and cash. Now these kind of entries we call it as contra entries. Another one can be cash withdrawn from bank, right? For office use. For personal use becomes drawings. This is for office use. So here you will have cash account debit to bank account. This is what we do, right? Now, when you have such transactions in the cash book, you will record it as a contra entry, and the contra entry is represented like this. You will put a within bracket. You will write C in the ledger folio column. In the ledger folio column, which will tell us that this is a contra entry. Fine. Now let's take this one, cash deposited into the bank. Now here bank is the receiver. Let's take that concept. Bank is the receiver and cash is going out, right? So bank is the receiver means it will come on the debit side of the bank column, and cash is going out means credit side, and in the ledger folio you will put C, right? Here cash is coming in, so cash is coming in, so it will be debited, fine, and bank is the giver of the money, so that will be credited, right? Okay. And you can take it in this way also, like the one which I had written here. If any transaction increases the bank balance, then it should be debited, and if the transaction decreases the bank balance, then it should be credited. Now see here, when you deposit cash into the bank balance increases, so it should be debited. And when you withdraw cash from the bank balance decreases, so that should be credited, right? So that's as simple as that, right? So these are the basic things that you need to understand before we start with preparing a double column cash book, right? So what are the entries and where the transactions have to be recorded in the bank column? So here I have written it clearly. This is the receipt side, so all the receipts are written on the receipt side, cash in the cash column and checks in the bank column. So whatever checks you receive, that will be put on the receipt side, and whatever payments you make by check, that will come in the bank column. Payments made by cash will come in the cash column. And then this is something which will help you decide where if you are in doubt whether it should be debited or credited. Remember this rule, then it will become clear whether it should be debited or credited, right? So we have taken up the contra entry also. Now in my next session I'll take up some more points pertaining to this two column cash book, after which we will take up a question in which we will prepare a double column cash book. So with that, I'll come to the end of this session. Bye.